Kunja Vihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana.
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari.
Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari. Thank you. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravikacharya Astotar Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Adnanta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we will be reading from 4th chapter, text 14. If you could repeat after me. Na mam karmani limpanti na me karmapali Spriha iti mam yo bijananti karma bahir na sa badyate namam karmani limpanti name karma pale spriha iti mam yo bijanati karma birna salabhyate namam karmani limpanti name karma palispriha iti mam yo bijananti karma birna salabhyate namam karmani limpanti name karma palispriha iti mam yo bijanati karma birna sabhadyate. Please chant. Namam karmani limpanti name karma palispriha iti mam yo bijananti karma birna salabhyate. Namam karmani limpanti name karma palispriha iti mam yo bijananti karma birsa nalibhyate. Namam karmani limpanti name karma palispriha iti mam yo bijananti karma birna salabhyate. Thank you. Synonyms: na, never; mam, me; karmani, all kinds of work; limpanti, due effect; na, nor; me, my; karmapale, in fruitive action; spriha, aspiration; iti, thus; mam, me; yaha, one who; abhijanati, does know; karma bihi, by the reaction of such work; na, never; saha, he; badyate, becomes entangled. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There is no work that affects me, nor do I aspire for the fruits of action. One who understands this truth about me also does not become entangled in the fruitive reactions of work. Purport. As there are constitutional laws in the material world stating that the king can do no wrong, or that the king is not subject to the state laws, similarly the Lord, although He is the creator of this material world, is not affected by the activities of the material world. He creates and maintains and remains aloof from the creation, whereas the living entities are entangled in the fruitive results of material activities because of their propensity for lording it over material resources. The proprietor of an establishment is not responsible for the right and wrong activities of the workers, but the workers are themselves responsible. The living entities are engaged in their respective activities of sense gratification, and these activities are not ordained by the Lord. For advancement of sense gratification, the living entities are engaged in the work of this world, and they aspire to heavenly happiness after death. The Lord, being full in Himself, has no attraction for so-called heavenly happiness. The heavenly demigods are only His engaged servants. The proprietor never desires the low-grade happiness such as the workers may desire. He is aloof from the material actions and reactions. For example, the rains are not responsible for different types of vegetation that appear on the earth. although without such rains there is no possibility of vegetative growth. Vedic Smriti confirms this fact as follows. Nimitta matram ivasu Shrijanam sarga karmani pradana karmani bhuta yato vai Shrijya shaktayaha. In the material creations, the Lord is only the supreme cause. The immediate cause is material nature, by which the cosmic manifestation is made visible. The created beings are of many varieties, such as the demigods, human beings, and lower animals, and all of them are subject to the reactions of their past good or bad activities. The Lord only gives them the proper facilities for such activities and the regulations of the modes of nature, but He is never responsible for their past and present activities. In the Vedanta Sutra 2.134, it is confirmed, Vaishamya Naigrinya na sapekshatvat. The Lord is never partial to any living entity. The living entity is responsible for his own acts. The Lord only gives him facilities through the agency of material nature, the external energy. Anyone who is fully conversant with all the intricacies of this law of karma or fruitive activities does not become affected by the results of his activities. In other words, a person who understands this transcendental nature of the Lord is an experienced man in Krishna consciousness, and thus he is never subjected to the laws of karma. One who does not know the transcendental nature of the Lord and who thinks that the activities of the Lord are aimed at fruitive results, as are the activities of the ordinary living entity, certainly becomes entangled himself in fruitive actions. But one who knows the supreme truth is a liberated soul fixed in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvare Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnabhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Nama Hare Hare. So thank you for joining today's class. There's my Guru Maharaj, His Holiness Badrinaran Swami Maharaj. He would always tell the guests, there's a million things I could be doing at this very second, but you choose to come to the temple. So thank you. So in this Kali Yuga, it's described that prayeno payusaha shabhya. That means that the duration of life is very short. And kalau asmin yuga yugej janaha. That in this age of Kali, we're very lazy. Manda, sumanda, matayo. Manda bhagya I upadrutaha. And Srila Prabhupada explains that we're lazy in the sense that we're not interested in approaching a spiritual master or finding out what is the absolute truth. So a thoughtful person will start asking questions. And Prahlad Maharaj, he says that this human form of life is very rare to obtain. But it's different, although it's temporary like every other body, that we can actually cross over this ocean of birth and death. When I go on book distribution, I ask two questions. Who are you and what's the goal of life? Very direct. And 90% of the people, they will tell me what reflects in the mirror. There was this one Mataji. She said, I'm an American girl. So I told her, you're wrong. And she looked at me. She said, what do you mean? And I asked her, what's the goal of life? Why are we here? What's the purpose of existence? And she said, to enjoy. So I told her, you're wrong again. So I told her, a lot of people, they will identify themselves with the body that they're in. I'm American, I'm Asian, I'm black, I'm white, I'm Christian, I'm Muslim, but we're neither of these designations. And it's called avidya, or ignorance, of our real self. And so I told her, you're a spirit soul, just like me, just like everyone else. And we are now encased, or you can say embodied, in this particular body according to our karma. And then so we started getting into karma. And so I told her that the purpose of life is to develop our dormant love for God. And it's always there, but now we've forgotten. And we actually want to try to take the position of God, like here in the purport, it says we want to lord over material nature. And when I go on book distribution, I share this nice verse that comes from the 3 modes of material nature. From the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. So when someone is situated in the mode of goodness, that person will begin start asking questions, making inquiries. Who am I? Why is there so much suffering? How can I break free from this entanglement of actions and reactions? What is the solution, and how can I bring as many people as with me as I can back to the spiritual world? But unfortunately, in this day and age, hardly anyone is interested in spiritual life. They want to know what's the newest restaurant, what's the newest burger, what's the newest fashion, what's the newest outfit for my dog, what's the latest dating app, This person is attractive, so maybe we will get along. So we're very superficial now, and Srila Prabhupada says, the reason why we're in trouble is because we're now living artificial lives. And there's a nice saying, Esha u hi eva sadhu karma karayate tam yam byo loke bya uni nishtate. And it means that the Lord engages the living entity in pious activities so he may be elevated. And at the same time, the Lord, he engages the living entity in impious activities so he may go to hell. So it's up to us. And a lot of people, they like to blame others, This is your fault, this is my dad's fault, but ultimately it's due to our own activities or our own decisions in life. And it describes that a king, he can do no wrong. Because in Vedic times, the kings, they were pious, they were actually Vaishnavas, Raja Rishis. Thank you for the adjustment, Tapas. Prabhu. So, that a king, he punishes a criminal. And according to the Dharma Shastra, it says that depending on the severity of the crime, the king can punish him. So if someone is charged with murder, the king has the right to kill him. So it's a form of atonement, because not only will he save that criminal from suffering this life's reactions, but it kind of resets his, you can say, his life. So that's a form of mercy from the king. And a lot of people, they have a problem with God coming to this material world, right? Why would God have a form? But it states that just like a king, he creates a prison house. But when he enters that prison house, he's not subjected to the rules and regulations. He can move in and out freely as he likes. So similarly, Krishna, he created this material world, which is only 1/4 of his creation. And he can come here, Idahi Dharmasya. He comes here to reestablish religion, and he also does two things: to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants. So we can see that in his Leela, in his pastimes, he killed so many demons in Vrindavan. And these pastimes of Krishna, they're meant to attract us back to the spiritual world. And Krishna is telling us this material world is temporary and it's full of miseries. The threefold miseries caused by natural disturbances or the demigods, miseries caused by the mind and body, and miseries caused by other living entities. And then the four other miseries: birth, disease, old age, and death. You know, a lot of people on book distribution, they don't understand that birth is not a good position to be in. My spiritual master, we were driving to Los Angeles, and he asked me, 2 hours sitting in one place, right? Is that comfortable? And I told him no. So he gave this nice analogy that the living entity stays within the womb for 9 months, not being able to go anywhere. And it's suffering from so many bites, and it's rolling around in blood, feces, urine in the mother's womb. So it's not very comfortable. Not only that, but there's a possibility of miscarriage. I had a coworker, and she had 2 miscarriages, and then finally she was able to give birth in the third one. So she was very attached to her child because of the difficulty she had with giving birth. And there's another saying that every man is architect of his own destiny. So it's up to us. And when you analyze this, it's true. Why are there so many discrepancies in life? Why are there rich people? Why are there poor people? Why are there people born with sight? Why are there people born blind? Why are there people naturally inclined to music and philosophy? Why are there people educated and why are there people illiterate? So why? So that means that there's a supreme controller. And just like it talks about karma, one that has purchased a third-class ticket on a train cannot enjoy the facilities and food on the first class. It's not possible. You can't. And Srila Prabhupada, he also uses the example of apartments. Some people, they have a 1-bedroom apartment. Some people live in a basement. And then there's some people that live in mansions. So why? Why are people able to live in these so-called living spaces? It's due to our karma. And Srila Prabhupada explains that the karma is like the rent. Based off of our karma, we can either purchase or have a good life or a bad life. And then Srila Prabhupada, he concludes that we may have a big mansion, but it's still temporary. Any moment we can be evicted, we can be kicked out of this apartment or this body that we're so attached to. I ask people on book distribution, why do good things happen to bad people and why do bad things happen to good people? And they don't have a definite answer for that. And so I tell them it's due to karma. So this word karma is very popularized now. You know, people say, oh, that's your karma, you know. But actually, Srila Prabhupada defines karma as any activity that results with the body that we have now. For instance, someone that has done, I like to give this example. In a previous life, when someone is very charitable, he is awarded sufficient wealth in this life. And when he misuses that wealth, it gets taken away in the next life. Past, present, future. So it's a broader view at looking at life. And karma and reincarnation go together like parallel tracks. you can't have karma without reincarnation, or you can't have reincarnation without karma. So, and people, they may accept reincarnation, but they believe they can only take birth in a human body in the next life. But I tell them you can't. Sometimes you degrade yourself or you go back to animal species. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, when one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the heavenly planets of the sages. And when one dies in the mode of passion, he takes birth in those among fruitive activities, meaning he comes back to earth to restart what he believes he hasn't finished yet. And from when one dies in the mode of ignorance, he takes birth in the animal kingdom. There are so many species of life here. There's 8,400,000 species. And a lot of people, whatever they're attached to, they get a body suitable for that. Krishna is very kind. He knows our desire at the time of death. When someone is too attached to water, he gives them an aquatic body to enjoy the ocean all day and all night. And when someone is too obsessed or attached to sex life, he may take birth as a rabbit. Rabbit, anyway, it's explicit. And when one wants to achieve the heavenly planets, he can do so. But there's an art to it. Just like Srila Prabhupada, he says that when one wants to go to a different country, there's a process for it. You have to have the right paperwork, you have to have the right visa, you have to have the right ticket. So similarly, there's a foolish idea that we can easily travel to another planet, according to mechanical spacecrafts. But if traveling to a different country is so difficult, why do we think going to another planet is as easy as shooting ourselves up in space? So it's very difficult. There's authorities just like the demigods. If you're not qualified to reach a certain planet, you don't go there. And since life and wealth are temporary, the wise use them to achieve permanent benefit. This is a sign of intelligence. If we know that our wealth, our body, everything that we're attached to will one day be taken away from us, why not use it for some permanent result, right? But in this Kali Yuga, everyone has only half of a brain. They don't think about these different subjects. Just like when you ask people, what do you bring with you in the next life? They understand they don't bring anything. So then why do you work so hard for wealth? Why do you try to better your economic development? A better house, a better wife, a better car, this and that. And ultimately gets taken away by Krishna. So yeah. And in the purport, it mentioned that the Lord is never partial to any living entity. So what does this mean? Krishna doesn't have favorites, but he particularly takes care of his devotees. An example is a king. He has so many commanders, he has so many servants, but when his son is drowning, he will personally try to save his son. Because it's natural, it's his affection. Or another example is a father, a gentleman father, may have 4 sons. 3 of these sons are rascals. And they only approach the father when they need money, when they need something. But the last son, he's very obedient, he's very humble. So naturally the father will have an inclination towards the obedient son, right? He loves his 4 sons, but he has a particular, you can say, he prefers to spend time with the son that doesn't cause him any distress. And people are either enjoying or suffering in this world. And when they have when they're experiencing happiness, it's described that sometimes a king, he takes a criminal's head and he drowns him in the water. And when he's about to die, he lifts him up again. And then when he has enough air, he puts him back in the water. So similarly, a lot of people think that the so-called happiness in this material world is actual happiness. But it's not happiness because it's temporary, it's flickering. And people, they don't even know what happiness is. They think happiness is only due to the pleasure of the body, right? But there's a higher happiness, it's transcendental happiness, and it can only be due when we reconnect back to Krishna. You know, when I go on book distribution, I meet so many different people, and they claim that Jesus Christ is the only Son of God, but I correct them. I said, actually, we're all children of God. You're a daughter of God, I'm a son of God. All of us are children of God. So we have to correct this misconception when we approach people. And it says that a king, when he goes into battle, he joins his soldiers in the front line. That's real, you can say, courage. But nowadays in Kali Yuga, the kings, so-called kings, they're the last people. They send their soldiers to war and they let them die while they sit back. So this is not very good, actually. And it says that a captain, he's the last to abandon the ship. When the ship is you can say, going into water, he makes sure all of his dependents are saved first. And then he himself gets saved. So this is an example of good characteristics of people. But nowadays, people want to save themselves. They want people to do the hard work. Just like when you go on book distribution, a lot of people, they don't want to read the books. But I tell them these books are patient. They'll wait for you. And I tell them they're transcendental time bombs, you know. At the right time, at the right hands, at the right place, it will explode. There's millions of people out there searching for answers. They're searching for truth. They're searching for God. And we have the books to give them these, we have the books for them to find answers. And just like the captain and the noble king, life is meant to be lived in we have more value if we live life full of honor, duty, and sacrifice. Life is not meant to be lived in a selfish way. You know, imagine having all the wealth in the world, but you're so attached to it that you're always worrying. Someone can rob me, or somehow or other my money will be lost. So that's actually a hellish life. You can't enjoy your wealth, see, because of that attachment. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna, he assures Arjuna that even if you die in battle, you attain the heavenly kingdom. Because back then the soldiers, they would either go to war and come out, return victorious, or they would die in battle. See? Because Kshatriyas, that's their dharma, is to fight for morality, or they're to fight for dharma. And so even these people that are fighting in war for no reason, they don't even know why they're fighting. If they believe that they're fighting for a good reason, they may attain the heavenly planets. But heaven is still temporary. There's a misconception also that heaven is eternal. It's a place where you enjoy, but when you ask them what are the activities in heaven, they can't give you a definite answer. And then you tell them heaven is temporary. Above that is the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. And above Vaikuntha is Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna's personal abode. And when I tell people that the spiritual world, they're self-illuminated, they're not dependent on the moon sun, electricity, or fire, they become curious. And I tell them that's our eternal home. And this material world, we're so dependent. We're dependent on air. We're dependent on the sun for us to see. And then we're dependent on the moon. So we're actually dependent on so many things. When we went to LA yesterday, this young man, he approached us and he asked Maharaj, what can I, because he's thinking about moving into the ashram in Los Angeles. And so he didn't know how to approach his parents, how to speak to them about, giving up work life, how to give up school, just, to pursue Krishna consciousness. So Maharaj, he gave this nice example. If you have a pitcher of water and you dip your hand in there, what happens to the water? It rises. And when you take your hand out, what happens to the water? It goes back. So that water line is compared to this life. Are we meant to just earn this and that and then to live and then finally die without making a difference in the world? Do we just take up space? Or do we really want to make a difference in someone's life? So we shouldn't live a life that's flickering, and we should actually create an impact. So Maharaj was giving him nice instructions, Just like if you see your family members, they're being washed in the river, and the tide or the river is very dangerous. And when you want to try to go after them and you reach out, what will happen to you? You yourself gets caught. See? So you need to stay on firm ground. So Krishna consciousness is that firm ground. When you understand your constitutional position, you can go from there. But if you just join the karmis, the fruitive act, the workers out there, the ordinary people, you're not doing any good for yourself, for your family, for the nation, for anybody. You just become, a name. So this human life is meant for something greater, to understand who we are, what our relationship with Krishna is, and how can we benefit by serving Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, he was challenged in so many ways. And one of these challenges was, why should I be a servant? And Srila Prabhupada says, that's your natural constitution, your position. And he was using the example of we must serve somebody. The child is served by the father and mother. The wife serves the husband, vice versa. And if we have work, we have a boss to serve. And we serve the mind or the body. When the body gets too warm, we take off a jacket. And then Srila Prabhupada concludes that if you don't want to serve anybody, you get a pet. And you serve that pet cat or a pet dog. And you become menial servants, People nowadays, they're walking their dog and they walk. And when the dog is ready, the dog tells the man, you stay there. Let me do my business. And then when the dog is finished, the man, menial, he picks up the remnants of the dog, and then he carries his the dog bag, and he looks for a trash can. Back in Vedic times, people marked their front doors with auspicious things. Rice, fresh grass, milk, things like that. But in Kali Yuga, people are decorating their homes, especially their front door, with buckets full of dog poop. This is Kali Yuga. Whenever I visit Maharaj in his office or his apartment, every dog owner has dog poop in front of their house. They don't care to put it in the trash can. They want to collect it. They want to show off the dog's poop. So it's very fallen age that we live in. When we go on book distribution or when we go on Harinam, what are we doing? We're offering or we're giving people an opportunity to remember who they are. And there's a nice example that if you're trying to solve an equation and if that first step is wrong, no matter how hard you work at it, the conclusion is wrong. Because the foundation was started off on a false premise. So if they think they're the body, whatever they chase in life, it's not real. It's not the correct answer. There's a saying that it's difficult to wake up someone who's pretending to sleep. So when people are not interested in spiritual life, when they're not interested in understanding the truth, it's hard to approach these type of people. Because Krishna has given everyone minute independence, this free will. So it's up to us to use it properly or misuse it. There's another saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So even if you explain the books nicely and you tell them that these books, they help you to make the right decisions in life, some of them will still not take it. But still we try, because that's a Vaishnav. He feels the suffering of others as his own. There's a pastime of Srila Prabhupada and a book distributor. Prabhupada, he would get so enlivened when he finds out that devotees are distributing his books. So he called this book distributor in his room. And he asks him, what do you say to people when you present the books? So the devotee said, oh, Srila Prabhupada, I tell him these books are on yoga and meditation. And Srila Prabhupada, he wasn't satisfied with the answer. Srila Prabhupada said, you should tell them this. These books, they help to save you from so much suffering, and they help you to solve all the problems in life. That's a better answer. I actually tried this a few times in La Jolla Cove, and people were very impressed by that answer. Because people ask me all the time, what are these books about? And I tell them, the last thing I tell them is that they're about yoga and meditation. I tell them these are spiritual books. I was distributing in La Jolla Cove, and there was a group of, you can say, visitors. They were from Colombia. And I noticed all of them were very preoccupied with their phones, taking pictures and this and that. And I noticed the last person of the group, she was just kind of looking around. She was a little different from the group. So I called her over, and then I asked her, do you like to read? And she said, yeah. So at that time, I had a free sign on my yoga and meditation sign. And so she looked at the sign, she looked at my table, she looked at my sign, she looked at me. She kept doing this about 3 times. And she finally asked me a nice question. She said, why do you do this? So I looked at the books, and I told her, have you heard of karma? She said, yeah. So I asked her, what does karma mean to you? And then she said, something that you do returns, back to you. So I told her, I showed her the picture of the man killing the cow and then the cow having a human body. So she was looking at it, and I told her, this is real. Karma is real. And then so I told her, this is why I distribute books. People are going to suffer a lot just by meat eating. So I asked her, do you eat meat? And she said yes. And so I told her, please try to give up meat eating. You're going to suffer a very bad future life. So I was talking to her for maybe 10 minutes. She got 4 books, I remember, and she walked away. She gave a donation. And then I think an hour later, she comes back with her friends. And then she tells her friend, you should get these books too. So that group that avoided me in the beginning came back to get a book. Just because I was able to speak to one of their friends and I was able to give them a nice impression on how important the books are. And before she walked away, I saw her face, she became emotional. She started to cry. And then so I told her that these books, they're meant to help you in this life as well as the next life. Whether you believe in next life or not, in this life you can be happy. And the best charity is to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books. Just like our devotee here, Janardhan Prabhu. He distributed Bhagavad Gita. What was it, Janardhan? Bhagavad Gita and another book, and they gave a donation. So anyone can distribute Prabhupada's books, because Srila Prabhupada, he speaks to them in his own way by reading the books. And he says it's better to give than to receive. And a lot of people, they understand this is true. We actually feel better when we give than to just receive, because that's our natural position, is to give service, is to render service. But the best service is rendering devotional service to Krishna. That will actually fulfill the soul, the heart. And I was distributing books also, and this lady asked me, what does this Hare Krishna mean? Because sometimes they skim through the books. And I told her, this is a mantra. And a mantra, if you break it down, man means mind, and then tra means a vibration or a sound that helps to relieve the mind, free the mind, liberate the mind, expand the mind from fear, anxiety, things like that. So I told her, the more you chant this mantra, the more happier you become. And she appreciated it. So the more we chant, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We're cleansing the heart from all these dirty things like lust, envy, greed, jealousy, hatred, things like that. And we're also connecting to Krishna himself, because Krishna is not different from his name, his form, his books, his words. And in the Bhagavad Gita it says, Raja Vidya Rajaguyam Pavitramidam Uttamam Pratyakshavagam Dharmyam Susukam Kartum Avyayam. That this knowledge is the king of knowledge, and it's the most secret of all secrets. Everyone wants a secret, but Krishna is saying this is the most secret. And it's the purest knowledge because it gives direct perception of the self and is joyfully performed. Everyone wants to perform activities, but these material activities, they produce a good or bad result. And ultimately, you have to take birth again to receive these good karma, so-called good karma. But we don't want to take birth again because taking birth is very dangerous. We may be awarded a nice body in this life, but in our next life, we may not be so fortunate. So, chant Hare Krishna, read Srila Prabhupada's books, associate with the devotees. And Krishna has this verse that I'd like to... He says, Janma karma chame divyam evamyo viti tatvataha tyaktva deham punya janma naiti mam ite sorjana. He says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. So when we give books to the people, they can try to understand who Krishna is, and then they may be saved from taking birth in this material world. But Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he says we should not even want liberation. We want causeless unmotivated devotional service, birth after birth. And liberation is actually a byproduct of prema, love for God, love for Krishna. Okay. Any questions?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the knowledge. So there are different levels of yoga, right? We'd say Kriya Yoga or different, and then Bhakti Yoga is considered as the ultimate destination. That's one should be doing. So I was wondering why those other forms of yoga were created, or they were created for different yogas. And in this yoga, are we only supposed to be doing Bhakti Yoga, or it can be a combination of everything? Thank you.
So in every yuga, the process of self-realization was different. The Satya Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Kali Yuga, and then Satya Yuga, if I didn't mention that. So in Satya Yuga, people were living for a lot longer than we have. So the process there was meditation. And then as the yugas progressed, the duration of life is decreased by 10 times. They had opulent deity service, and then there was also fire sacrifice, things like that. But in this Kali Yuga, we don't have the proper means. We don't have enough ghee. We don't have enough grains to perform these different, you can say, Yuga Dharma. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he prescribed Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalam nasti eva, nasti eva, nasti eva gatiranyataham. That there's no other way, there's no other way, there's no other way. He says it 3 times. In this Kali Yuga, for deliverance, then chanting the holy names, then chanting the holy names, then chanting the holy names. So this Bhakti Yoga is considered the topmost because it's spiritual. The other types of yoga systems, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, they're pertaining to the body. So even if one achieves these, you can say, 8 perfection siddhis, they have to give it up in their next life. So it's not permanent. And there's a verse also. Krishna says that the yogi that's always thinking of Krishna, engaging himself in devotional service, is a topmost yogi. So we're yogis, but we're transcendental yogis. I hope that helps. Okay, thank you. Yes, Tapas?
Difficult and controversial question for you.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it by you or someone else?
By someone else. I'm just repeating the words.
Okay, I'll try.
Okay. So the question is, the wife is devoted to husband, but she's following some typical, how should I say, typical yoga, like, typical yoga, how it is, better than me. I don't want to name any societies directly online. So the husband is a devotee, but the wife is not a devotee. The wife is devoted to husband, but she wants to go there. So husband leaving the wife. So is it okay for the husband to go away and join temple in that case?
So there's many ways to answer this, but the wife, she should be devoted, she should be faithful. The reason why she's looking for something else is because the husband is lacking something. See? If the husband cannot provide protection, she searches somewhere else.
So that's not the reason actually. I know that personally. So the society protection is already available. That's not the case here. Here the case is that she wants to pursue that desperately, no matter what happens. Okay.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, all of us have free will, so we can't force something onto others. So, but you, like I said, you could lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Even if you provide the highest philosophy, it's still up to that person. And actually, Maharaj, he says you ask him 2 things. What is your philosophy, and what is the end result? So this Mataji, the wife, what does she want by going to this group?
She experiences something there which she cannot describe.
So that means mental speculation, mental concoction. For the devotees, it's clear that Srila Prabhupada, yes? Tapas? Our goal is to reach love of God, loving Krishna. But if you ask any other group, they may be impersonal, they're kind of beating around the bush, you know. And even they want to go towards liberation, that's not the highest goal. Srila Prabhupada considers that spiritual suicide. So yeah.
So nice answer, Prabhu. But actually, her question is it okay for the husband to leave the wife and join ISKCON in that case?
Okay. Just because someone jumps off of a bridge, are you going to join that person? No. See? So you don't sacrifice your principle just because your wife did it. And actually, when you stay a devotee, you save her. Yeah. She may join another group, but the husband, if he knows better, his faith and his conviction, if it's firm and strong, then he has no need to go to the other group. But yeah, you don't follow someone just because they're your partner. Yeah.
That's so basically, husband is interested to join the ISKCON if the wife is going to that group. That's the question.
What was that?
If the wife is going to there, then husband wants to join to the ISKCON.
But then you can tell the results of something by if the person is happy. If the devotee is happy in ISKCON, that's you can say a result. But if the wife, if she's unhappy joining the other group, then that's also, you can tell the measure of the result.
Yes.
So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that helps.
But, you know, all we have to do is just stay in ISKCON. Everything's already prepared for us, going back home, back to Godhead. So we don't want to leave the boat.
Will husband accrue any bad karma in this case?
I'm sorry?
Will husband get any bad karmic reaction in this case?
No. It's described that someone can also leave a guru if the guru is not bona fide or fallen. So it's okay to leave a guru if they can't save you from the repeated birth, from the cycle of birth and death. Yeah. I know that this is Kali Yuga. Relationships and marriages, they're not what they're supposed to. Everyone has their own self-interest. Yeah.
That makes sense, Prabhu. Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, we're going to have nice kirtan and darshan now of our beautiful deities. Thank you for your time. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai.